In this video, I'm going to be diving into my top 3 assets that I am accumulating in December for the next full-blown crypto bull market. We're going to be sharing my price targets, a bull and bear case for all of these projects, and just doing a deep dive on each one. I am not looking for these assets to perform well over a short-term time horizon. Instead, I am looking at these assets to perform well going into the next full-blown crypto bull market. I have 3 goals that I'm trying to achieve this cycle. My lower goal is to make 1,000% gain for my overall portfolio during this crypto cycle. That would be a 10x, or every $10,000 that I invest turns into $100,000. My mid goal would be to make a 5,000% gain for my overall portfolio this cycle. That's a 50x, or for every $10,000 that I invest, it turns into $500,000. And my upper stretch goal is to make a 10,000% gain for my overall portfolio during this cycle. That's 100x. Meaning every $10,000 that I invest would turn into $1 million. Last crypto cycle, I had some projects that did 40,000%, some projects that did 20,000%, and a ton of other projects that did crazy things like that. And last cycle, my overall portfolio did about 4,000%. If you haven't been following along, about a year ago after the collapse of FTX, I put every single dime that I own into the crypto markets because I had such conviction that the crypto markets not only had bottomed, but that they were going to go higher from there based on a lot of different things, based on a lot of different research that I was doing at the time. I was convicted heavily that was the bottom, and this was the perfect time for me to put my money into the market. And after I did that, I got a lot of criticism. I got a lot of critiques. I got a lot of people making fun of me and just saying I was an idiot and just I was gambling away my life savings, and then I was speed racing to zero as fast as possible. All kinds of stupid things people said, but I held to my convictions. I put my money in, and now a year later, I'm up around 160% on my portfolio with my entire net worth being in crypto. So that's not like I stuck $1,000 in and I'm up 160%. That's like I stuck my entire life savings, every dime I own, and I'm up 160%. So suck it, Brian 2589. Anyways, overall, I have a good ways to go before I even hit my lower end goal, but I am 16% of the way there, which it feels amazing. That being said, I still firmly believe that the biggest gains to be seen in this market cycle are ahead, and that overall, we're still very, very early in this cycle. Okay, so let's dive into the projects that I'm looking at in December. Real quick though, none of this is investment advice, and blindly copying YouTubers is one of the worst ways to invest on the planet. This is a great place to learn, find new ideas, and different things like that, but you should always do your own research. First up, we have one of my personal favorites, and that's Maker. Now, Maker is a stablecoin project that might seem boring at first, but I swear there's a lot more going on under the surface than meets the eye. Stablecoins so far are literally the killer use case of crypto. They already have product market fit, and so far they've seen a wide amount of adoption. And not just as a place for you to hold value after you sell your crypto. They're widely used all over the world to transfer money, and especially into countries that typically don't have access to US dollars. And these people in these countries typically want access to US dollars because of, various reasons, like their currency that they're using right now. Maybe their native currency of their country is inflating at such a fast rate that it's just not a good vehicle for them to store value in. But it's not just like third world countries that are really inflationary that want access to the US dollar. While it might be easy to look at our massive debt here in the US and to look at our complete lack of fiscal responsibility, the sad truth is every other country on the planet is actually worse off than the US is. Among a sea of inflating currencies, the US is the least bad option. And because of that, there's just a huge demand for the US dollar. In fact, stablecoins actually have a distant cousin in history in the form of the euro dollar. And again, just stick with me. I swear all of this is important and helps me explain better why I see so much value with Maker going into the future. Euro dollars were essentially the original stablecoins. Other countries all over the world wanted access to the US dollar, but they couldn't access it because US dollars are held in US banks. So foreign banks would open US bank accounts where they would hold US dollars and then release their own Eurodollar currency that was backed one for one by US dollars. The point is there's a huge demand for US dollar access by foreign banks. They open US bank accounts and then they back these sort of financial assets in their own countries that are backed by US dollars, but that aren't actually US dollars. And that's really similar to how stablecoins work, where we release this digital stable asset that's backed by US treasuries or US dollars held in banks in the US, but isn't actually within itself a US dollar. The Eurodollar market today is estimated to be around $13 trillion. And currently the stablecoin market cap is a mere $126 billion. Yet it's inherently a much better instrument to export US dollars to the world than euro dollars are. And that's because it's faster, cheaper, and it can be accessed by countries who typically couldn't previously access even Eurodollars in their country. And the rapid growth of stablecoins so far attests to that fact. Stablecoins are actually currently the 16th largest holder of US treasuries in the world. They hold more treasuries than Norway, South Korea, Germany, the Netherlands, and more. And I believe over the coming decades, stablecoins will grow to become one of the top 5 holders of US treasuries in the world. So again, stablecoins are kind of a big deal, but they're flying under the radar right now. And Maker is a stablecoin protocol responsible for the DAI stablecoin. And DAI is one of the top stables out there that stood the test of time. Currently, the annual revenue for Maker sits at around $345 million. And their market cap is around $1.3 billion. Most people don't realize it, but stablecoins are actually huge revenue generating machines. Tether, the largest stablecoin out there, made over $1.4 billion in profits in the first quarter of this year alone. That's more than the entire market cap of Maker in profits that they made in the first quarter of this year. And this money is primarily generated by them holding US treasuries. However, here's why I think that Tether's days are numbered and why I think DAI has huge potential to capture a much larger market share. There are so many various rumors around Tether that keep persisting every single crypto cycle that it is wild. And it's not in general viewed very favorably in the industry. My personal opinion and belief, which is probably actually contradictory to what most people believe, is that these rumors probably actually aren't true. The truth is, Tether's probably actually over-collateralized and doing just fine. When we saw Terra Luna's stablecoin UST collapse, we saw pretty much every stable on the planet end up depegging in some form or another. Well, when this happened, USDT had probably the most pressure out of any of the various stablecoins because it has all these rumors that constantly circulate about them. And that was the point where everyone said, this is the time, USDT is finally gonna break. And so people were really fearful that USDT was gonna collapse. However, what ended up happening was USDT held up completely fine. Like they had no issue whatsoever repegging and they didn't collapse at all. So contrary to most out there, I actually think that Tether is probably on very firm and stable financial footing. Regardless about that, I still think the stigma around Tether is really firmly ingrained. I think I'll leave comments on this video where people are like, oh, you're wrong, Tether's a fraud, blah, 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 because people just believe these things so deeply at this point. Plus, the US government really seems to want to rein in Tether. So Tether in general has a lot of headwinds that are holding it back and that are, a downward pressure on Tether, keeping it from maybe growing as fast as it would like to. The second thing that I think holds Tether back is that they don't pass any of the yield that they're generating using those assets onto the customers actually holding Tether. Instead, they keep 100% of that yield for themselves. That's why they made $1.4 billion the first quarter of this year, is because they just keep all the profits for themselves. DAI, by contrast, has the DAI savings rate, which passes the yield DAI is generating by holding these US treasuries directly onto the users holding DAI that deposit them into the DAI savings rate. And just ask yourself, if you had a choice between holding a stable that was widely hated, the US government didn't like and was coming after, and didn't pass on any of its yield to its end user, or a stable that has none of those headwinds, that has none of those issues that kind of freak you out, and yields around 5 to 8% just by holding it. And again, that yield is directly coming from holding US treasuries. So it's not like some Ponzonomics or anything like that. At least it's not like crypto Ponzonomics. It's US government Ponzonomics, and that's backed by the full faith and assurance of the United States of America. In my opinion, it's an easy choice. You're going to choose the asset that pays you out a yield and that is, not as widely hated as Tether. Anyway, between those 2 points, I think we're primed to see DAI's market share continue to grow and Maker's revenue increase in line with that. In fact, I think eventually stablecoins as a whole will end up replacing Eurodollars and take their market share as well. So in my opinion, Maker is primed to grow its share of the pie, and the overall size of the pie is primed to massively expand as well. All right, so my base case for Maker is that currently it's valued at about 4 times its revenue. I think in a full-fledged bull market, it would not be unreasonable at all to expect that to go up to about 10 times its revenue. And on top of that, let's say because of everything that we just talked about, we see DAI grow its market share from 5 billion to around 30 billion. That would be a 6x in revenue as well. Meaning overall, my base case from here is that we see Maker appreciate about 18x from here. My more bullish case would be that DAI actually does phenomenal over this next cycle because of the DAI savings rate, because of all these different things we talked about. DAI really has its time to shine. It's been around for a long time. It's one of the oldest stablecoins out there. It's proven itself over a long period of time. And it really, this next market cycle has its season. And it's able to grow to the height that Tether is currently today, which is around $90 billion. That would mean potentially Maker could 54x from here, which would be huge. And my ultra bullish case for Maker would be that at the same time, we see the stablecoin market take about 20% of the market share from the euro-dollar market. That would mean that the overall stablecoin market would be around $3 trillion, which to me doesn't actually seem that insane. That would mean for Maker that our 54x turns into a 1,242x from here. Again, Maker might seem boring, but I think there's a huge amount of potential that most people just aren't paying attention to because they don't understand how the banking system works and how stablecoins work. Now let's talk about the bear case for Maker, because there definitely is a bear case. The first one would be that we could definitely see wide issuance of CBDCs by central banks all over the world. And those would be in direct competition with things like stablecoins and eurodollars all over the world. A second kind of bearish outcome would be that if governments decided to crack down on stablecoins, maybe they don't, if a government actually understood how stablecoins work, especially the US government, there's no reason that they would want to crack down on them. It would be very, very, very stupid of them. In fact, they should want stablecoins to succeed more than anything. The government right now is having a huge issue actually offloading treasuries. Nobody wants to buy them, but stablecoins are buying them up in droves. Like they're the 16th largest holder of US treasuries, which is really good for the government who needs a buyer of its debt. And stablecoins export the US dollar all over the world, and the US dollar is essentially the US's number one export. That's like the reason we have so much wealth and power is because of the US dollar. So it's a very, very good thing for the US government, and they should be extremely supportive of it if they were smart. But sometimes they're not very smart. And so there's definitely a situation where they could attack stablecoins and try to shut them down, and maybe they could separate DAI from their treasury holdings, or, there's all kinds of little things they could do that would be an extremely bearish outcome for Maker. In my opinion, though, obviously every investment carries risk, and I'm an eternal optimist. I actually think that it's going to end up working out for stablecoins, and I personally hold a huge position in Maker, and I'm excited to hold it into the next bull run. Number 2 is Polygon. Now, in my opinion, Polygon is currently wildly underpriced because 99% of people really don't understand what they're building and how it works. But if most people did understand what Polygon is actually building and how it works, I think a lot more people would be wildly more bullish about Polygon. And I say that so confidently because what they're claiming they built is absolutely game-changing. And if that's true, then it is going to utterly change the crypto space forever. And it actually boggles my mind. It literally boggles my mind when I go on Twitter and I go everywhere else that more people aren't talking about it. And it actually almost even frustrates me sometimes because I'm like, this is insane. If this is true, this changes everything. This is like the game-breaking thing that crypto's been waiting for if it's true. But really quickly, let's refresh on what Polygon is. Polygon is a layer 2 network built on top of Ethereum. We currently have tons of layer 2 networks. We have Arbitrum, we have Optimism, we have Base, we have Eclipse, we have Polygon, etc. We have so many layer 2 networks at this point that it's almost becoming a meme. There's just lots of layer 2 networks launching on top of Ethereum right now. However, a lot of the criticism about layer 2 networks that people are talking about, there's too many, etc., is because, again, people just don't understand how layer 2 networks work or what the purpose is behind layer 2 networks. And I think if they did, they'd be like, actually, this is really bullish that there's a lot of layer 2 networks because that's a good thing, because I'll explain that in a second. Think of Ethereum like this super network, right? At its base layer is Ethereum, and everything built on top is an extension of Ethereum. So Arbitrum, Base, Optimism, Polygon, Eclipse, etc. They're all extensions of Ethereum. They're all connected down to Ethereum. And the argument for layer 2 networks as a scaling solution is an argument for the free market's ability to solve problems. Again, stick with me because all this is important for understanding the value prop behind Polygon and why I'm so excited about it. Again, most people don't understand it. I'm trying to help you understand it right now. Think of layer 2s like Ethereum's App Store moment, where you have hundreds or thousands of different innovators and entrepreneurs build their own version of Ethereum's future and let the market decide what's the best fit. For example, you have Optimism, and they have this vision to build a super chain where many different layer 2s align on technical standards for like improved interoperability. You have Arbitrum, which their vision is also to build like a universe of chains, but with a focus on app-specific chains. You have Eclipse, which is layer 2 built on Ethereum, and their vision is to replace the EVM with Solana's SVM. They want to build an entirely different kind of layer 2 with a unique world of use cases. They also did something a little bit different where they opted to use Celestia for data availability versus using Ethereum, adding yet another unique spin on how a layer 2 might look. And Polygon's vision is yet another twist on the concept of a superchain, yet this time with a focus on ZK tech. And the big game changer, and the reason I'm so excited about Polygon, is their concept of unified liquidity across chains. And this is the part I want to emphasize because, again, if this is true, if they can actually do this, then I think Polygon is ripe to absolutely dominate. The biggest argument currently against layer 2s is that they fragment liquidity. Basically, to make it really simple, think about how annoying it is to bridge between different chains. Like as a user, you don't like moving your funds between different chains. You prefer to kind of usually essentially stick within one chain ecosystem, because it's kind of a pain in the butt to be like, I want to move my funds from Ethereum to Solana, or I want to move my funds from Solana to, Binance, or Binance to Arbitrum, Arbitrum to Optimism. It's like not a fun and good user experience to have to move between all these chains. So usually when funds are transferred on into an ecosystem or onto a chain, they kind of tend to stick there, because there's so much friction moving them out of that system. This is why Ethereum having so many different layer 2s gets memed so hard, because can you imagine the absurdity of having to bridge between 1,000 different layer 2s? Nobody's going to do that. That's insane. That is not a practical vision for the future moving forward. Then there's this idea of app chains, which is this idea that single apps will have their own blockchain that you have to bridge, between. So imagine every time you want to use Uniswap, you had to bridge to the Uniswap chain to use Uniswap and then bridge your funds back to Ethereum, or whatever. That's what basically layer 3 networks are. And obviously it's laughable. Nobody's going to want to do that. It's a really horrible user experience. Okay, if you're kind of following along, then you should be caught up to speed here. Polygon's vision for unified liquidity essentially solves all of those issues. It would mean that every single Polygon chain, whether it's another layer 2, an app chain, whatever, every single one would share the same liquidity. Meaning you wouldn't have to bridge between chains. Switching chains would be as easy as switching websites. You might be using thousands of different chains, but it would feel to the user as if you're simply using the same chain, which would in theory mean that Polygon, if they're able to achieve this, would have near unlimited scalability. It would also mean that instead of having all these general purpose layer 2s, we'd have a bunch of highly specialized layer 2s for specific purposes that are seamless and easy to use. And as mentioned, things like app chains would of course make a lot more sense if you didn't have to bridge between chains. If you could have your own app chain, but users don't have to bridge their funds back and forth and it's seamless, it's like just clicking over to a different website essentially, then of course app chains would make a lot of sense. Why wouldn't every crypto app have their own chain essentially? Because then you could have it highly customized to your purpose and you would be essentially the only app on that chain. In fact, some apps could have multiple chains, because if users don't have to bridge between chains, or if the bridging is so quick and so seamless that they don't even notice that they're bridging, then yeah, an app wouldn't feel like it's on its own island. It would feel very much connected to the rest of the ecosystem because it all is seamless to move between. And really quick, let me give you an example of what this might look like in theory. Let's imagine you're on Polygon ZK EVM and you have 2 ETH in your wallet and it's on that chain. But you want to use this special privacy swap on this special privacy layer 2 that's a completely different blockchain. It's a completely different layer 2, but it's built using the Polygon ZK ecosystem. Well, traditionally, if this was an entirely separate chain, right, you'd have to bridge over to that 2 ETH using a bridge. You'd have to wait 10 to 20 minutes, pay a little fee, and then you could start doing things on that chain. However, with Polygon 2.0, that wouldn't be the case. All you'd have to do would be to go to the swap and swap your tokens. It would be essentially like the tokens were already there because of the way that unified liquidity works. And this is essentially all made possible because of how zero knowledge proofs work. And I really hope you're understanding just absolutely how insane that would be. It would make the crypto user experience essentially 1,000 times easier to use and open up an entire world of new use cases that previously literally couldn't exist before. You would essentially have apps that would be able to use complicated cross-chain messaging to execute weird swaps and weird things, financial products that again just never could exist outside of an ecosystem like this. Again, Polygon 2.0 essentially promises to make moving between chains as seamless and easy as moving between websites. Just like today, users don't care if a website's hosted on WordPress or Amazon or how it's built. At that point, all of that stuff is abstracted away and users just use the apps because they care, they want access to that thing. This again would only work though for layer 2s and app chains built within the Polygon ZK ecosystem. And my thesis is that once this door is open, it's going to very quickly gain really powerful network effects that are going to be really hard to stop later down the line. Why would anyone launch a siloed chain elsewhere when they could launch within the Polygon ZK ecosystem, have their own custom chain, and tap into all those users and all that liquidity that's shared among all those different chains? I think if this plays out, Polygon becomes a super chain and they just win the layer 2 scaling wars, period. Okay, besides all that, here's why else I see Matic appreciating in value going into the next bull run. For one, you have the official launch of their Pol token, which if you don't know, the Matic token is going to become the Pol token. That's going to happen at some point in the future. And everyone that holds Matic today is going to one-for-one transition that into the Pol token in the future. And over the years, I've seen a ton of different token rebrands like this, and they almost play out essentially in the exact same way. Usually what happens is once announced in the weeks leading up to the actual launch, the actual moment where users can transition their Matic over to Pol, we usually see massive token appreciation because people get really excited about the launch. And in the case of Pol, there's actually going to be multiple stages of launch. The contracts for the Pol token are currently live. At some point in the future, we're going to see Polygon, the sidechain that most people use today, turn into a ZK Validium chain. We're going to have the actual token transition where users send their Matic to a smart contract and receive Pol. And there's going to be a ton of other release milestones as well. And I believe when we have these big milestones, we're going to see not only the token appreciation, but we're going to see the market taking a deeper look at what Polygon's building. And if I'm right, and the market hasn't priced in what Polygon is building, then we're going to see more appreciation in the token as the market prices that in. On top of all that, there's another change that I think the market has clearly not priced in, and that's that the Pol token is going to have a ton more utility with the Polygon 2.0 vision than the Matic token has today. The Pol token is what Polygon is calling a hyper-productive token. That's because with a single token, you're going to be able to secure hundreds of different chains within the Polygon ecosystem. Remember, Polygon is going to have the ability to launch thousands or even millions, if needed, of chains that all share the same liquidity. The Pol token will be the capital used to secure all those different blockchains. And the Pol token does this in a couple different ways. You can use the Pol token to secure the validator or the sequencer. You can use the Pol token to secure the aggregator layer. You can use the Pol token to secure the data availability cluster, or you can use the Pol token to secure the prover layer. So as you can see, the Polygon 2.0 vision is wildly bullish, but it feels like the market is completely asleep at the wheel when it comes to what they're building. And it reminds me a lot of when the market was completely asleep at the wheel when it came to Solana. Everyone was bagging on Solana, saying it was worthless, the price was dumping, until everyone collectively realized, oh my gosh, they were wrong. Solana is actually building something useful. This is really exciting. And then the price massively skyrocketed from there. Two more quick notes would be that Polygon has been the team who continually has been able to secure insane massive partnerships with huge Web2 companies like Nike, Starbucks, Mastercard, Adobe, Meta, Reddit, Adidas, Google, and more. They are amazing when it comes to securing those partnerships. And I imagine they're going to have a lot more come next bull run, which typically when they announce those different partnerships, that ends up pumping the price. As well as on top of that, Polygon is maybe looking like potentially a killer gaming play as well. Games could potentially launch their own chains on Polygon 2.0 while not siloing themselves off from the rest of the space. Also, Immutable ZK EVM chain is actually built using Polygon. The Matic market cap is currently $7.4 billion, and the TVL on Polygon is around $857 million. And at its peak last cycle was around $9 billion. So to compare, Solana's TVL is around $667 million, and at its peak last cycle, it was around $10 billion. Solana is currently sitting at a $25 billion market cap, while Polygon is sitting at just $7.4 billion. So Polygon is not only being widely used, but it's also the 5th largest chain by total value locked above Solana, Avalanche, Optimism, and more. And it has all these insane upgrades coming that, if successful, fix one of the biggest scaling issues in crypto. Okay, so my base case is that it hits around $70 billion in market cap based on all the different things that we've been talking about so far. Solana hit around $78 billion last cycle, so I think this is something that's definitely doable. And that would be about a 10x in price from here, so that's not bad. My bull case would be that everything ends up working out for Polygon 2.0. They attract a ton of different layer 2s to build on the Polygon standard. They become a powerful network of different interoperable, various layer 2 chains and app chains. And if that's the case, I think we could see Polygon hit around $100 billion next cycle, which would be about the size BNB hit last cycle at its peak. That would be around a 14x from here. My ultra bull case for Polygon would be that not only is Polygon 2.0 successful, but we see all sorts of layer 2 solutions and various app chains that come up with specialized approaches that you just don't see anywhere else in crypto. And they're able to come up with products and solutions that you don't see anywhere else in crypto. I also think in this scenario, we could see things like TradFi companies release their own maybe niche use cases on the Polygon network to maybe do very specific things. As well as I mentioned earlier, games potentially launching their own chains as a part of this ecosystem. And in this scenario, Polygon acquires powerful network effects and it sees a massive network because of all this. In that case, my ultra bullish case for Polygon would be that it hits around $500 billion in market cap, and that would be around a 71x from here. My bear case for Polygon would be a couple different things. Probably the biggest one would be if unified liquidity ended up being sort of gimmicky, or maybe there's a drawback that they're not mentioning, or there's a thing that we're not quite aware of that kind of hinders this from being as fluid and seamless as they make it out to be. If that were the case, then obviously that would be a huge bearish scenario and would basically throw everything I'm saying out the window. The second bearish case would be if they go too slow. They have this idea out there, maybe some other team figures it out quicker, gets it to market quicker, and is able to execute on it quicker and kind of steals the show from Polygon. The third bearish case would be if the market is able to abstract away these different friction points without unified liquidity. So say the market finds a different solution to interoperably move between chains without having to deal with bridging, that would of course make unified liquidity redundant and not nearly as impactful as it could have been. My personal take is I'm really bullish on what Polygon is building, and I think that the market is underpricing it. Third is Shrapnel. Shrapnel is a crypto game created by some of the top gaming talent in the world. Shrapnel aims to compete with Call of Duty and is built by Neon Studios and a AAA team who's worked on Halo, previous Call of Duty games, Destiny, BioShock, and more. They've literally won Emmys for their work. Needless to say, they have what it takes to put together a AAA game. Shrapnel is a first-person shooter game where players drop into what's called the zone. The zone is filled with various valuable resources the players need. So this could be like loot, this might be like crafting resources, it could be armor, guns, etc., from my understanding. Where it gets really interesting is in the build-out the player chooses. When you drop into the zone, if you're killed, you drop all of your loot on death, including your loadout. That means that if you decide to use your favorite overpowered gun and best armor, you're taking a huge risk. If you die while in the zone, you'll lose that gear and another player can pick it up and extract it. The gear, armor, guns, etc. that you collect and use in the game are NFTs, or digital collectibles, meaning the player fully owns the assets and can sell them on a marketplace just like any other NFT. And we've seen in the past that people are willing to pay a lot of money for something as simple as a profile picture NFT. In the case of something like Bored Ape Yacht Club, we've seen NFTs sell for millions. How much more, though, would somebody potentially be willing to pay for an NFT they can actually use in their favorite game? In fact, in the case of a game like Shrapnel, an NFT that can help them collect potentially even more valuable gear. To me, this seems like a killer concept that could be on par with something like Battle Royale games and how addicting they can be. Now, to be clear, there are other games that exist like this. Extraction shooters, that concept exists out in the world today. The key difference here is that the gear that players are extracting and players are getting is completely player owned and something that they can sell on an open marketplace, similar to how NFTs and other digital collectibles are sold on an open marketplace. And that difference means that that gear has the potential to be insanely valuable and a huge driver of game growth and retention. At its core, crypto gaming's big innovation is that it allows for true digital collectibles, similar to things like trading cards, comics, art, etc. And while that might seem like a really small, simple change, I think it's going to open up an entire world of new economies. And no matter if you hate this idea or you think it's really stupid, I really don't see how this doesn't end up becoming the future of gaming. If you could imagine a game like Fortnite, and imagine a game that's exactly the same, it's just as fun, you enjoy it just as much, like you have two games that are exactly the same as far as like enjoyment to play. And in one of those games, you can buy skins that you can't sell on an open marketplace, you don't own, you can just wear them in the game. And in the other game, you can buy skins, but you can go and sell those skins on an open marketplace and they can accrue value. And again, if both of those games are like exactly the same as far as playability, etc., the game that clearly brings the most value to the player is the one where the player can get assets that they actually own. Why wouldn't you want to own the assets that you have in the game? Why people spend like thousands of dollars on these Fortnite skins? It would be really nice if those could actually accrue value for them and they could actually sell them on an open marketplace later down the line. They could collect them like any collectible item. At its height, Axie Infinity had 2.7 million active players a month. And that's insane. If you really think about that, 2.7 million active players a month is crazy. To compare that, the average 30-day players over 2023 for games like Counter-Strike 2, the 5th most popular PC game on the planet, was just 2.2 million. For Overwatch 2, it was 1.4 million. For Apex Legends, it was 6 million. And for GTA 5, it was 1 million. To even play Axie, you had to download a crypto wallet, learn how to use it, buy crypto, bridge it over, then buy some Axies to get started. The actual gameplay was widely considered really boring. Yet at its height, it had 2.7 million active players. People weren't playing Axie because it was easy to get started and test out. They weren't playing it because it was such an amazingly fun game. They were playing it and choosing to overcome all of these hurdles almost purely because of the digital collectible aspect and the fact that they might be able to turn a profit off of it. What does that say about the power of digital collectibles and player-owned assets and games as an incentive to get players to play? What will happen when we get an insanely fun to play game that is combined with this same powerful mechanic? I personally believe that potentially Shrapnel could end up being that game. And to be fair, like Shrapnel isn't the only game that I think could be that game. There's like a spectrum of games that I'm like, you know, any of these games could end up being the killer hit that the crypto gaming needs. And Shrapnel is one of those games in that spectrum of games that I consider worthy of potentially playing out this way. Okay, so there are two important factors when looking at the Shrap token to consider. First and most important, obviously, is do we think that this game could potentially be popular and players are going to actually want to play it? And to that, I would say absolutely. I think this game could potentially be an absolute hit. I also think that like streamers are going to love games like this. I could see some of the bigger streamers doing all kinds of different stunts where it's like, oh, I spent $100,000 on, this gun or whatever, and I'm going to drop into the zone and see if I survive, or like different antics and PR stunts like that. Cause that's what influencers do. That's what streamers do. They do all these different PR stunts like that. And I can see that being a really popular format for streamers to do to get a lot of viewers and get a lot of engagement, which is hugely bullish for something like Shrapnel. But also at the same time, imagine you're a streamer, maybe not like the biggest streamers in the world, but imagine like everyone from the small tier to the mid tier streamers. It would be nice if you were playing a game that you were also making money playing that game by earning all these items, etc., while at the same time you're hoping to advance your streaming career. So I can see a lot of streamers gravitating towards a concept like this. Okay, so number one, is it going to be a good game that you think people will play? I think yes. Secondly, I think we need to look at the fundamentals of the actual Shrap token and see if it's a good play. Because let's say the game like actually does skyrocket. Well, if the token is only loosely connected, like if it's kind of like oddly connected to the game that it isn't really a meaningful way, maybe there's a potential for the token not to do well. Actually, in my experience, even when that's the case, the token usually does do well, to be fair, because that's just how it works out. But still, it'd be better if the token was more directly connected to the game. The token has 4 use cases. The first use case for the token is governance. And I can see governance being a useful feature for players where like you maybe could vote on mechanic changes, balance tweaks, different item tweaks, etc. If you're a really engaged player, especially if you have collected a lot of loot and it's really valuable, having a hand in governance could be a very valuable aspect for you as a player. Secondly, the token is used to run validators on the network. Third, the token is used for minting and as a medium of exchange. For developers and players that want to create custom content on Shrapnel, think of like how Roblox or Minecraft allow studios to create like custom content, custom maps, etc. For those people, in order to mint and publish that content, they'll need to pay fees in Shrap. So for like custom maps, skins, vanity items, etc., which I'm sure if the game takes off, there will be a massive marketplace for things like this. Can you imagine like if Fortnite allowed custom skins from third-party developers? It would be huge. There would be a huge amount of developers that want to put these custom skins on the marketplace. On top of that, it's also the default currency for the Shrapnel marketplace. Think of something like V-Bucks, only there's like a limited supply. So if you want to buy anything in the marketplace, you're going to have to use Shrapnel to buy it. Fourth, it's going to be used as rewards and incentives. So for like competitions, different things like that, they're going to pay out Shrapnel tokens to players. That is kind of actually an overall bearish aspect of the token in that like it dilutes the supply. I guess if they use it right, it could be bullish because it could attract a ton of players to their game, and a ton of players in their game makes it a bullish scenario. But overall, usually like diluting the supply is not like necessarily a good thing, but if they use it really well and it's really like efficient, I guess it could be. Looking at the token allocations, most of the tokens are not in circulation today. That means they will come into circulation over time and dilute the supply, which isn't a great thing. The current market cap for Shrapnel is 66 million, and the fully diluted market cap is 880 million. So that's a pretty big difference. So the big question is, when will those tokens unlock? If it's soon, then that's really bearish for Shrapnel. If it's over a long period of time, then that could be bullish for Shrapnel. Team and advisors make up roughly 27% of the supply and will unlock 12 months after the token genesis event, which was November 8th, 2023. So November 8th, 2024, those tokens start to unlock, but they don't unlock all at the same time. They slowly drip unlock after that year over a period of 4 years. The rest of the unlocks for seed and strategic also start after 12 months, so November 2024. And then for the seed token holders, which is like 20% of the supply, they will drip unlock over a period of 12 months, so by November 2025. And for strategic, which makes up about 7% of the supply, that's going to take 2 years to drip unlock, so November 2026. Boiling it all down, seed token holders, strategic token holders, and team advisors are what we're going to look at most. Team, advisors, and strategic won't be super relevant for the cycle, as I'm expecting to exit well before their full unlocks. Seed token holders will actually be pretty relevant though, because they're going to unlock before the end of this cycle, and that's about 20% of the supply. So we're going to take 20% and add it to the market cap as if it's already fully unlocked. And that would put us at around 183 million in market cap. Plus, to play it safe, because some of those other ones are going to be drip unlocking, plus there's like community rewards, let's round up to about 300 million in market cap. My base case then would be that we see Shrap hit the same market cap that Axie hit last cycle. And that would be around a 31x from here. My bull case would be that we see Shrapnel do twice as good as what Axie did. Shrapnel is a much funner concept. I think overall the market's just going to have more liquidity, which is going to allow prices to go a bit higher, and we have overall more mature player onboarding. That would be a 62x from here. My ultra bull case would be that Shrapnel ends up being a massive global hit, and we see it end up hitting something like the market cap that Doge did last cycle of $75 billion. That would be a 250x from here. My bear case for Shrapnel would be a couple different things. The first one would be that the game could end up being a total total flop. Again, the trailers can always look amazing and then the gameplay can end up sucking. And that, I can't tell you how many games where the trailer looked awesome, the gameplay actually sucks. So that's always a potential. The second bearish thing would be like if they don't have any sort of systems to combat cheating. I can imagine that being a pretty big issue in a game like this, especially if you have like value accrual. Like people are going to try to cheat for sure. And if they don't have a system that can counter that, that's going to be very bearish for this game over time. The third would be that there's just a lot of interesting like crypto games launching right now, and not all of them are going to succeed. I would imagine the majority of them actually end up failing. And Shrapnel could be one of the ones that fails. Like over time, it could just fail for a variety of different reasons. That is always a possibility. Overall, though, my take on Shrapnel is that I actually think it's a killer concept and it has a ton of potential next cycle. And I actually already invested in Shrapnel a couple days after it launched, and I'm currently up 193%. This was an opportunity I shared with my community, the Obsidian Council, which is currently closed to new members, but you can join the waitlist in the description of this video. The game launches early access in the coming weeks, and it's something I'll be keeping an eye on. Also, on one last note, always a huge bullish catalyst for different tokens is when they launch on major exchanges like Binance and Coinbase. And it's worth highlighting that currently Shrap is not on Binance or Coinbase, and so it still has that catalyst ahead. And currently I just plan on holding until the bull run's mania phase ends up kicking in. As always, if this video was helpful, make sure to hit that like button. If you have any other games that I should be checking out, let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the little bell next to it to be notified each time I release a video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.